Well, welcome everybody to the Connecticut Arts Alliance's Create the Vote Candidate Forum. I'm Eric Dillner, the CEO of the Shoreline Arts Alliance, along with my colleagues, Wendy Berry, Executive Director of Southeastern Connecticut Coalition, Cultural Coalition. Can you wave, Wendy? Say hello. There she is. And Jess Coswell, Executive Director of Wyndham Arts. And can you wave, Jess? Great. As a part of the Create the Vote Connecticut, the Connecticut Arts Alliance, in partnership with its regional partners, is hosting a series of 5 candidate forums statewide to learn more about candidates' views on the issues facing the arts and cultural community and to educate voters on the issues. The Cultural Coalition, Shoreline Arts Alliance, and Wyndham Arts are co-hosting today's forum. In case you're not familiar, a little bit about Connecticut Arts Alliance and Create the Vote Connecticut. Connecticut Arts Alliance is a statewide nonprofit organization that works to build political, financial, and grassroots support to ensure that arts are a vital part of life for everyone in Connecticut. The organization's mission is to inspire support for the arts. Create the Vote Connecticut is a nonpartisan public educational campaign to raise awareness and support for the arts among voters and candidates running for public office. Connecticut Arts Alliance launched the first Create the Vote Connecticut during the gubernatorial election in 2018 and inspired focus on the arts during Governor Lamont's transition and helped stabilize statewide public funding for the first time since the Great Recession. The initiative was originally conceived and developed at Mass Creative, a state arts advocacy organization in Massachusetts. The regional partners have come together as local arts agencies across the state to provide candidate forums to help inform our voters on your position on supporting the arts. Thank you, candidates, so much for agreeing to participate today, and we welcome all of our guests who are on the outside of the webinar. Today's forum will be live streamed on Facebook, it says in my notes. We'll see if that really happens. But if not, we're recording it, and we will distribute it post the meeting. The event is open to the public and promoted by our organizations as well as the Connecticut Arts Alliance statewide. So we're asking that folks out there who'd like to ask questions to please use the Q&A to ask your questions of the candidates, and our moderators will feed the questions to the candidates as they're able to. We will assume that all of your questions are intended for all the candidates to weigh in on unless you so designate a question to a specific candidate. Today is about the arts, leveraging their economic impact on our communities and state, as well as coming together to improve this great state of Connecticut. I would like to introduce you to Jess, the Executive Director of Wyndham Arts, and Wendy Berry. And Jess, would you lead us into the beginning of this program?
Absolutely. So hello, and thank you so much, Eric, for that wonderful introduction. Also, thank you, candidates, for being here in addition to our question askers. I'd like to now introduce the Concenaire choral community, currently running a Ballads for Ballots program in which subscribers will receive a weekly performance centered around our right to vote. So without further ado, the Concenaire choral community's Voices of Consinity, Wild Embers by Melissa Dunphy. And just so you know, the first minute or so is silent.
They should have took the ashes of the women they burned alive. They should have took the ashes. They should have took the ashes of the women they burned alive. Because it takes a single one to bring a They should have took the ashes. They should have took the ashes of the women they burned alive. They should have took the ashes. They should have took the ashes of the women they burned alive. We are the story. We are the story to bring to bring a
Great. Jess, did you want to add anything about that? But again, I know there was a gray bar on my screen, so if you couldn't see some of the names on it, you can always go to the YouTube performance. We can share that link, but thanks for sharing that from the Wyndham region. We always want to begin some of our events with some arts, right, to speak to some of the relevant things going on right now. So I see Bob, thank you for joining us. I just see you down there now. Hello. So it's my pleasure. I'm Wendy Berry. I'm the Executive Director of the Southeastern Connecticut Cultural Coalition, one of the 9 regionals. Thanks to Eric and Jess, my colleagues here, and to, I know, Brett Thompson from the Arts Alliance is on here as well. So it's my pleasure to introduce the candidates who are joining us today and also help to ask the first question. So with us today, we have from the House District 101 candidates, John Michael Park. If you want to raise your hand, so you're great. And Representative Noreen Kukuruda. We have Senate District 12 candidate, Senator Christine Cohn. Just so everybody knows, our participants understand, all candidates were invited from these races. So they may have chosen not to attend, but they were all invited from each race, each party. Senate District 18, Senator Heather Summers and Bob Stachin. Great, thank you, welcome. And Senate District 20, Senator Paul Formica is not here right now, but we have Martha Marks. Thanks, Martha. And Senate District 19, Senator Kathy Austin. I know she's there. She's not on video, but she's waving to you. I'm waving for her. Thanks, Kathy, for joining us. So each candidate will have time to answer each question. We'll keep it informal to start, and then be sure to call on everybody, but just be mindful of the candidates that are all here and not monopolizing that time. But our first question, so for the attendees here, all of the candidates were asked to fill out a candidate questionnaire for Create the Vote, and those can be found on the Connecticut Arts Alliance website, ctartsalliance.org. And so these questions come directly from the candidate questionnaire, and there's questionnaires from all over the state, so you can check those out when you consider your who you vote for. And so this question 1, comes directly from that. It's about your personal connection to the arts, and it's going to be asked by Dick Wheeler, the Executive Artistic Director from Oddfellows Playhouse in Middletown. Dick.
Hi, thank you. Thank you for taking my question, and thanks to all the candidates for coming. You know, we all know that the pandemic has been challenging for so many people in Connecticut and in so many different ways, but it has affected the arts uniquely. So my question is just, how have you personally benefited from or participated in the arts or creative expression, creative experiences over the last few months? And what local arts experiences have you missed most over these last 7 months?
Thanks, Dick. So for this first question, we're going to do it popcorn style, as Jess calls it, and we'll see whoever wants to raise your hand and jump in, and we'll make our way around the Zoom room. Martha Marks, I see your hand up first.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for inviting me. I'm running for the 20th for State Senate. I live in New London, was born and raised in Waterford, Connecticut, mother of 4 children and one of 8 kids, brothers and sisters. I have lots of artists in my family. I was a dancer, not very good, but I loved it. One of my favorite things in the world was when I was in high school. I actually went to the Alvin Ailey studio in New York City and got to leap across that amazing studio. I was the worst one in the class, but I will never forget it. My children all dance, piano, art. They're really good at all of it. My oldest daughter is a pediatrician on Navajo Nation, and she has now bought a loom, is going to learn how to weave with some of the native people that she's living with there. And all of my kids are amazing. My sisters and brothers, I have a sister who plays the drums in a Bulgarian brass band. We are Irish and German. I'm not sure how she got there, but it was actually from folk dance because she started as a folk dancer. All of my siblings, we all love the arts. One of my favorite memories with my children was going to New York City, to Broadway. We did it all the time. And we also went to every local high school's musical, because I did that in high school and it was one of my favorites. So even if it wasn't our high school, we saw every single musical. And I loved it. And it's something I shared with my kids and I will never forget it. Over the last 7 months, especially as a nurse, I'm a nurse serving on the front line. It's been incredibly stressful. In the beginning, I watched CNN 24/7 when I wasn't working because I was obsessed. And I finally turned it off and started listening to music again. Starting listening to music I haven't listened to in a long time. And besides, Broadway shutting down, it was really sad, but 2 of my daughters did stay and isolate with me. They live in Boston. And so I got to see Hamilton for the first time with both my children at home. I knew every word to every song because I listened to the music. And of course, my kids have all seen it 3 times, but you would think they would have brought mom 1 time, but they didn't. So I watched Hamilton with that and it was great. And I think one of the things I missed the most is the Eugene O'Neill in the summer. It is my absolute favorite thing to do. My absolute favorite. I just think it's the most brilliant place in the world. And I did go to Preston Whiteway's Going Away party, which it was magnificent, brilliant the way they did it with Eugene O'Neill going around with the statue. And I will miss him terribly, but I just can't wait to go back to the O'Neill. I mean, I love every part of the arts, everything, but I miss the O'Neill a lot this summer.
Thank you, Martha. I appreciate that. I know I've seen you at the O'Neill in the summer times. I miss it too. We don't play favorites with our children when it comes to the arts. They're all amazing and we miss them all. Who wants to go next and tell us about your personal connection and what you've missed the most? Just put your hand up.
I'm happy to go, Wendy,
Great.
if you, or I saw John Michael pop his hand up too. You can go next, John Michael. I'll budge in front of you. Anyway, well, that was really great to hear, Martha. These are so great for candidates as well, because we get to learn a little bit about each other, which is really nice, and especially talking about something like the arts. I too have a very artistic family. I was not blessed with the gene. We always joke around about that because my cousins are all novelists and fantastic artists. My great-grandfather was Ezra Winter, who painted the famous mural in Radio City Music Hall. So I am blessed that I have all of his art hanging in my home, but certainly didn't get that gene from him. But I did get the gene to have a love of the arts, that is for sure. And we are big, have always been big Broadway goers. And enjoy a lot of the local theater here. The pandemic definitely brought about an abrupt halt to many of the activities that we all know and love. And for my family, that meant being able to attend a lot of the local shows and forego the season tickets that I have had to Goodspeed for several years now, and have enjoyed. I enjoy visiting all of our local theaters. As you said, Wendy, we don't play favorites. There's, I grew up in Ridgefield, so Ridgefield Playhouse is near and dear to me as well. And so many, I love the O'Neill and the Schubert and Longworth, so I could go through them all. But, you know, it's meant a lot of giving up these days, right? Where I have 3 children, all musically involved. It meant giving up those music lessons and not hearing the music sort of resonating through our hallways in our home quite as much as music lessons died down. Thankfully, with the beginning of school again, we're starting to hear that music being played once again. My daughter was cast in a 4th grade play, The Wizard of Oz, and unfortunately, all that practice also came to an abrupt halt, and they were very disappointed not being able to participate, as was you know, the high school theater arts program that is so important across the district in all of the schools. We heard from a lot of students. But it also meant seeing, you know, creative ways of, you know, bringing the arts into the homes and lives of so many during the pandemic. And we saw so many creative Zooms with a cappella groups coming together, bringing together their voices of hope and change for the future. And, you know, just recently, one of those high school performing arts groups put together their plays in an empty room, but filled, you know, the homes of so many through Zoom performances. So it's been really great to see amidst so many heartbreaking moments, because everything did come to a stop, to see some of the creative ways in which the arts have come into our lives in these past months, and just so grateful for that. So we're down, but we're certainly not out. And, you know, these special performances have really helped to fill a void of live theater and production. And, you know, I know with phase 3, we're going to get to experience some of it again. And hopefully we can all just remain hopeful for a return to normalcy in the not so distant future.
Thanks so much. I appreciate that. There's nothing like a live performance for sure, but we're making do with what we have, right? John Michael, I saw you were on to go next, so go ahead, John Michael Parker.
Sure, happy to. Thanks for having us again, and thanks for the folks that organized this. My name is John Michael Parker, and I'm running for state representative in the 101st District, which would serve Madison and parts of Durham. The arts mean a lot to me personally and professionally. As a young person growing up in Madison, I was grateful to be a part of all of the musical groups and opportunities here in town and across the state. And now in my professional life, I serve as the executive director of Arts for Learning Connecticut, which some of you folks might remember as Young Audiences of Connecticut. We changed names a few years ago. So we are a nonprofit that works with teaching artists across the state to serve hundreds of thousands of young people in K through 12 schools with arts in education. So that's through performances and workshops and teaching residencies and professional development services. So I feel very closely connected to the community and have gotten to see a lot of the challenges that organizations have faced recently, and that individuals, teaching artists and performers, and folks that maybe aren't always covered by some of the support programs that are out there, how difficult this time has been. So as has been referenced, work getting canceled is so tough. In my personal life, I serve as the conductor in our high school's musical. So unfortunately, we did not get to do the show, as Christine also mentioned, happened everywhere. But with our organization, we lost a $250,000 in revenue, which most of that goes into the pockets of our teaching artists, with all of the school closures and all of the organizations being closed down. So it's been a tough time. But the real, I'd say, silver lining here is the move to, as again has been mentioned, provide virtual work. So our artists, being resilient and creative and ready to jump into new skills here, figured out how to do their programming online. And it's just been extraordinary to see what's possible and what's been available. I'll be interested to talk about some of the educational opportunities that are available through the arts specifically. And of course, how issues around equity make that challenging when we're looking at distance learning and what's possible or not. But we have found that providing creative, inspired professionals into someone's home, especially during a difficult learning time, can make a big difference. So just want to say I'm grateful for the work that you folks do organizing this community, and looking forward to continuing this conversation. Thank you.
Great, thanks. So before I move on to either Noreen, I'll be your next one. I just see Catherine Austin, Senator Austin, and Senator Formica. I see you both in as attendees, which means we can't get you over. So you look for in your inbox, Eric, if you could just if possible, send that panelist link so we can get them into the featured speaker part of it. But we can't.
I'll bring them over. Actually, stay on, and I'll bring you over as a panelist.
Okay, great. Thanks so much. All right, Noreen.
So is Senator Formica, and who else?
I do, and I see Kathy Austin. Senator Austin is also over in the attendee side. Thanks.
Thank you.
There we go. So welcome, Senator Formica. But go ahead, Noreen, you're up.
Thank you, Wendy, and thank you all for doing this. Well, unlike John Michael, I was not born with that gene, but I am an advocate for the arts and culture, and certainly a patron. My husband and I were fortunate enough to live in New York. We had an apartment in New York for several years. We left maybe about 5 years ago, and I'll tell you, I made an effort to see so many shows and so many concerts in the museums. It was really the nicest 7 years that I remember spending anywhere. When I moved to Madison as a young mother, I got really involved with the schools, and my boys, I have 2 sons, my boys are outdoor boys and they love sports too. And that's where their focus was. And we tried with the music lessons, and actually, we were discouraged from keeping it up. They just weren't devoted enough. But I'll tell you what I noticed was so much of the focus on most of the kids in those days was on sports and other things. And I think one of the things, as a PTO mom and a PTO leader, and then a selectman, I have pushed the schools, and I look at what we're doing now. And John Michael mentions that he's been a beneficiary of a lot of that. What we do with the music, I wish I could remember the percentage, but the percentage of children in Madison that are involved in music in some way at the high school is astounding. And then the arts too. I have a granddaughter that she was so looking forward to high school, to really be able to focus on all those great art classes. And I have found the schedules to be really tough, even before COVID. And I think she's lost out on a lot of courses that I was hoping she'd be able to be part of. But I'm really involved with the arts and culture. I have tied it really to tourism. And in representing towns like Madison and Durham, I represent 101st. Preservation is a big issue, and I put that all in the same really bucket. And I think what we're trying to do in Hartford, and we have to continue to do, is to convince people that this is an economic driver. And I think not enough people realize the jobs that are in arts and culture and in the humanities. And one of my years up in Hartford, I remember working with the lobbyists, and I was on a PROPS. And the governor, was a former governor, kept cutting the humanities line. And one day I looked and couldn't find it. He actually had taken the line out of the budget. Well, I want you to know that legislators of both sides yelled loud enough that it did get put back in the budget. And so that's how I've been really, really interested. I obviously I'm a patron. I love what Madison does with all our concerts and our music. Our Madison Art Society is so involved in our community. As we built our library, that was part of the conversations of how we could do to promote the artists in our town. So that's where I've really been an advocate for. And I know how important the arts are, and it's really, really enriched our communities. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Noreen. I appreciate that. Bob Stachin, I see your hand up, and then we'll go from Paul to Heather, and then Senator Austin at the end. Great. Go ahead, Bob.
Hi, and thanks so much, Wendy, and thanks so much for organizing this event. I think it's really important. And again, I'm on the advocate side of the spectrum rather than the artist side of the spectrum in regards to this. And with 3 teenage kids, I think I've spent the last 10 years mostly as a taxi driver for artists is the way I look at it. But one of the things that we've really taken advantage of is the Coast Guard Academy Band. And I know that my son took French horn with Miss Heather, and my daughter took trombone with Mr. Rick, and you know, Eastern Connecticut is kind of, because we have that asset, because we have that Coast Guard Band, When they go to the eastern regions, when they go to Allstate, the Eastern Connecticut students really kind of stand out. And a lot of people do credit that. There's a lot, we have the orchestra, but a lot of it is because we have that resource of all those Coast Guard Academy performers teaching, which I just think is absolutely wonderful. But my kids are also singing, my girls sing in the church choir at the Calvary Church, and been doing that for years and years, and they do traveling around London when there's not a pandemic. And the Guard, I miss it. I miss the Sea Music Festival, which I think is certainly was a big hit. And I think it's important. And I know when I'm on the Board of Finance in Stonington and I get the Board of Ed up there, I'm always asking the question, how come we don't get an orchestra? And other schools in the area do, because I think it's crucial. And I think especially in this time, and I imagine we're going to talk more about kind of where we go from here. But I think it's crucial. I don't think the arts should be an add-on to education. I think they should be, they're so fundamental. And you see the math scores and all the student performance, how it just goes through the roof when there is a solid music program. And some of my kids went to the magnet school, and there's a difference there when you go to the magnet school in New London versus going to Stonington. I got a kid at Stonington too. And we have to, I think we need to equalize that. I think we need to work hard to make sure that all the schools have an orchestra, and all the schools have those opportunities to do that. And again, not just for philanthropic reasons, but because I think it is crucial for the kids. So we got to get through this. And when we do, we need to have plenty of advocates and drivers for the arts. And I look forward to resuming my role. Thank you.
Thanks, Bob. Appreciate that. I think I said Senator Summers next. I don't remember now, or Paul. I'm sorry, whichever Senator. Paul, you want to take yourself off mute, or who, Heather?
Do you want me to go, or Paul?
Happy to allow the senator to go.
All right, great. Senator.
Oh, thank you, Senator. Can you hear me?
Yes, thank you.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Heather Summers. I'm the senator from the 18th district, and we come from a very artistic family. I actually was a painter for a very long time, and I had given it up until COVID, and being home helped me be able to renew that love of painting that I've had for a long time. Just really haven't had the time to pick it up. I also, believe it or not, was in a band years ago. And my son is a musician in New York City. He's home now because of COVID. My daughter is very musically inclined. My husband and I, fortunately, had a place in New York, like Representative Kokaruta, until about 7 years ago. So we used to be able to go there on the weekends, take in all the shows, spend a lot of time on Broadway, buying the cheap tickets that you could for the day. And really, it's an integral part of our life here. One of the things that I've been trying to do during COVID is maintain sort of that connection with the arts. It's been really something that's been very, very missed in our household. And as some others have spoken, watching Hamilton on the big screen is just not the same as seeing it in person. I have not had an opportunity to see it in person yet. But we ended up going through all of the musicals, back to like Chitty Chitty Bang Bang. We ended up with Grease, just to watch all the old musicals during this time. And having a 10-year-old singing the soundtrack from Les Miserables has its benefits and its downside, I will tell you. Some of those high notes are pretty tricky. One of the things that I'm proud of, I've been involved with an organization called the New England Music Hall of Fame. I'm an ambassador for that organization. We just inducted a few members this weekend at Gilson Park in Willimantic. I also have been very intimately involved with the Mystic Museum of Art. One of the things that I think is very important is how art can be an expression to bring momentum of a cause forward. And one of the things I sponsored was an art exhibit for children 2 years ago, where they were able to take all of the plastic materials that they found out of the sea and create sculptures. And we had a special art exhibit for them, and it was amazing. It was so creative. The artwork was beautiful, and it really raised an awareness about the plastics that we have in our sea and what we need to do as a culture and as humans to change that. Arts in schools is, for me, a huge priority. And in public health, as my chairmanship on the public health, one of the things that we were, huge advocates are, and we finally got it across the finish line, was making sure that our art therapy program, that people that claim that they are art therapists are truly trained in the right areas. We had many people claiming that they were art therapists to help people through traumatic experiences, but they really did not have the credentials. We wanted to make sure, I know Wendy, you were involved with that, making sure that they had the appropriate credentials, and that when you had an art therapy license, you were truly an art therapist. You had the qualifications. We also are looking to do that for music therapists. And one of the things I wanted to share with you is on public health, we have an ability to visit many different hospital settings, et cetera. And one of the most moving places that I have been to was a hospice hospital that had a special room where children could draw on special tiles their experience and how they felt in losing a loved one. And it was beautiful and sad and bittersweet, but you could see that the room had just the calm, and the therapy that went along with it was unmatched. So I'm glad that we're able to talk about this today. Sitting on the tourism caucus, arts and culture and tourism are a priority. We have been able to do some things to help save some of our large icon tourism destinations like the aquarium this year, but we need to do more. I have been an advocate of having a tourism czar and an arts czar that was be an appointee by the governor with a much larger budget than they see now, because as we all know, for every dollar you spend, everybody has a different return, but anywhere from $5 to $7 back in the same year. So I'm looking forward to the conversation. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So we have Senator Formica and Senator Austin next, and then we're going to move on to the second question, where we're going to probably give you a little bit more structure on the time in terms of making sure we can hear from everybody. So Senator Formica, your kind of personal connection to the arts and what you've missed most during COVID. And thanks for being here.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Wendy, and thank you to the technical gurus to getting my video in place here. I appreciate that. I raised my kids, most of the time they did sports. And in the senior year, my son came to me and said, I played 3 sports for 3 years. I want to do the play. And he did the play. And I realized the rounding out of his experience in high school that play gave him. And it gave me my first real up close look at the mechanics of how a play is done. We've taken the kids to Broadway and done all of those things, but that really became an awareness. And when I was first selectman, I had the opportunity to work with the greatest park and rec director ever. And he came to me and said, look, we have a request. We need to do something about the arts. And we put together the Shoreline Arts and started putting on plays. We had great folks doing it. I got the opportunity to get up and introduce the play on stage each and every time. And it really helped our park and rec department really fill out a void that we had in the park and rec department. As it turned out, I was asked to be in one of those plays, and I had the opportunity to be in Footloose, which I was scared and petrified to death. These wonderful kids worked so hard, and I had my 8 or 9 lines, and I was petrified about doing it, but it was one of the great experiences of my life, and I made some great friends, and we had a great time. You know that I founded, when I got to the legislature, the tourism caucus that later evolved into the Arts and Culture and Tourism Caucus because of the importance. Tourism gets folks here, arts and culture keep them here and give them a reason to come back. So I'm very pleased to be able to support that in a bipartisan way. And the question to what I miss most, some years ago, I took up dance and had the opportunity to work with Arthur Murray and do some ballroom dancing, and I morphed into learning the Argentine tango and traveled around the world, actually, to Argentina and Italy to dance that, and I've not been able to dance the tango since this started, and it's driving me crazy. It's the greatest dance in the world, so that's what I miss the most.
Thank you. So the task is we need to find the video of Footloose so that we can have that. And let's make sure we all get it on video when you do the tango again, Paul. Thank you for sharing. Senator Austin.
So good afternoon, everybody. I appreciate going last because it gave me an opportunity to settle in at home, because I was in my car when this first started and I had to switch from one technology to another. So thank you very much for each and every one of you taking the time you did to speak about your arts experience. So in my arts experience, I back in my high school timeframes, decades ago, I did a lot with the arts in regards to painting and in regards to pottery and other things that I still have today. My daughter is also an excellent artist, and her painting comes from, I would say, comes from the soul, and has a lot to do with trauma. And so I think that for me, the arts is about helping out people who have had trauma, whether it is children who are sexually abused or physically abused, to allow them to have that expression. So I always take the arts as not just a social occasion, but more of a an intimate way to express yourself, which I think a lot of people have a hard time expressing themselves. And so for me, that's really what the arts is about. And in regards to that, I think that that also helps out our veterans who have post-traumatic stress. I think that the arts are something that allow people to mend or to smooth out those rough spots in your life. And that for me is the most important part about the arts. And I think that we're going to find that many of the people that are involved in the pandemic today are going to need ways to deal with the trauma of this experience that we're all having. And I think that that's something that, for me, the setting up the building blocks of how we're going to move forward is something that I really think we have to look towards. So whether it's painting or it's playing the piano or a musical instrument or trying to figure out your way through a play, those are things that we're going to need to really become creative on how we support those mechanisms to provide people who have experienced trauma from childhood through being a veteran or anything in between. So that's my little personal pitch.
Great. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Jess Coxwell, who's going to bring in the second question and the time structure so we can make sure we get through it.
No worries. Thank you so much, Wendy, and thank you, candidates. Those were very thoughtful answers, and we all appreciate that very much. As Wendy mentioned, we are going to be structuring the next set of questions a little bit more. So if you could please limit your responses to 2 to 3 minutes, that would be absolutely brilliant. Thank you so much. Our next question is about arts and economic recovery, asked by Dot Burnworth from Sawmill Pottery in Putnam. And Dot, I would like to turn it over to you.
Thanks, Jess. So my question, like Jess said, is about the economic recovery. Connecticut can't recover without the arts. Arts and culture are key for Connecticut's economic recovery. Creative industries pump $9 billion into the state and account for 3.5% of Connecticut's total economy. Our nonprofit arts organizations support 23,000 jobs and generate $800 million annually and return $7 back in tax revenue for every $1 invested by the state. How will you help harness the power of the arts for Connecticut's economic recovery? Thank you.
Great question, Pat. And similar to Wendy's question, we are going to be performing this popcorn style. So whomever would like to go first, please feel free to raise your hand. John Michael, please take it.
Sure. Set my timer too. Thank you for the question. So I've been, and this is informed by our work at our organization, working with our board and of course the other organizations in our network, thinking about 3 different phases as we move forward. And they're almost sort of parallel tracks, frankly. The first is making sure we're collecting the right data. So these organizations have done a great job of putting out surveys to executive directors and other organization leaders to understand the impact, financial and otherwise. So we really know the challenges that are there and then can design solutions that are going to be responsive. So the first thing is about making sure we know what's actually happening. The second piece I'm thinking about is sort of the flip side, which is making sure there's great communication happening. And again, that happens through our regional service organizations and these networks, so that we're providing the best information and guidance and tools and tips that people are figuring out as they work their way through this. Also sharing what the updates and the new opportunities are for financial support. And then the third piece is, you know, as we continue to move forward, is investing in these organizations. So the relief funds have been extraordinary. The recently announced $9 million to the sector is so wonderful. But we do have to keep in mind that, and of course, this is by design, you know, these different relief funds are pretty specific to different pieces of the sector here. So there are so many organizations and, of course, individuals and independent contractors that do need the support. So as we continue to design relief programs and provide funding, making sure that we can sort of capture everybody. I really applaud Connecticut Office of the Arts and Connecticut Humanities and DECD overall for the work they're doing through that. So, you know, continuing to advocate for federal funds and then making sure that Connecticut is sort of there to back it up when needed is going to be critical. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you so much, John Michael. And who would like to go next? Senator Kokoruda, please.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I'm actually a representative, but that's okay. Both names are
my
fine.
apologies, Representative Kokoruda.
Thank you for that question. You know, I talked about it a little bit when you asked your first question, but I've been a member of appropriations from the beginning, and I do feel a difference with the whole committee. When I really want to congratulate your community that has done this, a difference in people really appreciating what the arts does and how important it is to Connecticut. And I know Senator Austin's on this call, and she certainly will attest to the fact that you see so many legislators that understand that and understand that you are part of the economy, and it has to be. As far as things we can do, obviously, John Michael Parker is correct. We have to be looking at grants. We have to find ways to support you. But we have to be honest with the fact that we know we're going back to a dire situation statewide with everything. And so I think we don't know what to expect when we go back. Maybe Senator Austin does, but I know after COVID, the whole state, every state has taken a hit. And we're going to be really having so many different groups competing for limited dollars. And that's going to be a problem. And I know you understand that. One of the things that I'd like to really encourage, and I'm sure you've done it, is partnerships. And, you know, years ago, I ran an organization that did recreational programs. We built an aquadome over a swimming pool. We had 4 camps, summer camps and all. And an arts group came to us, the Nutmeg Players, who unfortunately right now are not in existence, but they were an old organization, a theater group, started with the Jitney Players in the 30s. In the Shoreline, and they were in trouble with going out of business. We were able to give them office space, liability insurance, and someone to answer a phone without it costing us anything. We had the space. It turned out that we could cover their liability insurance with a rider without any extra cost. We had never thought of that, and I think more groups have to start working in partnerships together to help, because with limited dollars in the future, we've got to be really creative. And I know I'm preaching to the choir here. I know you folks understand that, but the Nutmeg Players were able to be successful while they were under our tutelage, and we really was so easy to do. We have to do more of it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Representative. I appreciate that very much. And who else would like to go next? Please, Senator Cohen.
Thank you, Jessica. So this is such an important question, and I too am a member of the Arts and Tourism Caucus and wholeheartedly believe in the ability of the arts to really help rebuild Connecticut's economy. So we really have to ensure the health and vitality of the organizations first before they're expected to create the vibrancy of our dimming economy. Recently, together with Senator Austin and some of my colleagues, in the calls that we were hearing from our arts community, we're trying to put our heads together. How can we get at this? And we recognize that the first thing that we really need to do is listen to the organizations across the state, because different venues have varied challenges. It's really not a one-size-fits-all approach that is going to help all of these folks. So while the $9 million in CARES money is huge and will go a long way, as John Michael alluded to, you know, it's not going to capture everybody. It's not going to help every single organization that is really struggling in Connecticut to stay afloat. And we want so badly for them all to stay afloat. So this was evident in sort of our meeting that we had together with Commissioner Lehman as well as Commissioner McCaw of OPM, trying to really think about how we could go about this thoughtfully from an appropriation standpoint, recognizing that unfortunately the state as well is in a tough economic position on the whole, and there's just not a whole lot to give at this point. So we just need to continue to listen and to advocate for the needs of each venue and each venue's needs that may be very specific to each of them. You know, we need to borrow on each other's resources and fundraising tactics. We are a region, and you know, recognizing that together with our you know, friends in New York and Massachusetts, and think about how we're putting our heads together as a region as well, can be extremely helpful during these times. Incentivizing and promoting awareness to the broad Connecticut community, and provide the destination that folks are really desperate for at this point. I think the state did a fantastic job in revamping its marketing campaign with "It's so good to see you, Connecticut." And I think we can really take it a step further now that we have entered phase 3. You know, really plays perfectly into this as we describe all of the attractions as they open, and the importance of our culture and history to the people across the state, but most importantly to our future healing and recovery. So you know, again, as I believe John Michael said before, I think most importantly, it's about listening and understanding the needs of the arts community, the arts and culture community, and then advocating for those needs. And I will continue to do that.
Great. Thank you so much, Senator Cohen. Martha, please. Oh, I think you're muted.
Senator Formica, I think, had his hand up first.
Oh, pardon me, Senator Formica, please take it away.
And I did see him do the tango once at a higher edge event. Remember? And you won, actually. And he's pretty good.
Brilliant.
I had a great partner there, one of the high school kids who raised a lot of money for High Hopes too. Martha, if you have something to say, you're welcome to go ahead, but
you can go first.
Okay. All right. So economic recovery. Thank you very much, Martha. Economic recovery depends on confidence, and that's where we have to get next. The arts, culture, and tourism caucus that we founded and worked bipartisanly needs a full-throated operation to work throughout the entire state. We need people to come and support the hotel tax. The hotel tax is what generates the tourism fund that we were able to put aside as part of the budget. That is going to be challenged because people are not staying at hotels, and therefore the fund is not accumulating. So it's important for us to develop consumer confidence and safety during this pandemic and get people back to visiting our state. We're going into what is normally the slowest time for hospitality and tourism once we get by the holiday season, and it's going to be very difficult to get people traveling. So we're going to have to do some protecting of that fund. We're going to have to work together to try to highlight the importance of the returns have been mentioned to the state, so it's not a cost as much as it is an investment. And while the $9 million will help as a start, it's certainly not going to be enough to keep things going. You know, Martha and I are going to spend some time tonight in the Great Guard Art Theater in London, and we need places like that. And there's many of them around the state. There's many of them around the state that need to be supported. The Bushnell, galleries, museums, theaters. So it's going to take a concerted bipartisan effort and really going to have to buckle down and get things done. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator, very much. Martha, we shall move over to you.
Okay. So, and I think we learned, you know, with this pandemic that, oh, I'm going to time myself because I talk a lot, that first thing we need to do is get our public health all set. So the very first thing first thing we have to do is make sure we control this virus. And we have to make sure that we fund our public health, that we have the contact tracing and we have the testing, because we're never going to be able to open up everything fully and really get the arts we need until we get our public health funded and set. And it's my number one goal if I am fortunate enough to get to Hartford, because nothing else will come after that. Then, just like everybody said, we have to listen. I was on New London City Council, and I don't think I missed a Southeastern Connecticut Cultural Coalition meeting. I loved going to them. I loved hearing about what all the different venues were doing. You can't possibly go, I wish I had the time, but you don't have the time to go to every venue that there is and see all the amazing things happening. But I do know that New London, Connecticut would not be what it is right now. I've lived there for 30 years and the change is remarkable, and the change is because of the arts. So, once we get this pandemic under control, we have to listen to what everybody needs, and then we have to find the funding. $9 million sounds like a lot of money, but we all know it's not going to go very far for the amount of arts that we have in Connecticut. So hopefully we get a little bit more from the federal government. And then we're going to have to all really work together, because I don't think there's anybody that doesn't know how much we need the arts. And like Kathy said, there's a lot of people facing a lot of trauma right now, and the arts is one of the best ways to help them through it. 1 minute and 40 seconds.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. Bob, please go right ahead.
Well, thanks again. It's an important question, and I come at it from somewhat of a different tact. I run a small business legal clinic at a law school, so I've formed nonprofits. I've drafted their bylaws, got them registered with the state to make sure that they're up and running and able to benefit both arts and education. I served on higher ed. Martha mentioned I've served on that board of directors, and Paul, I'm going to see if my sister might get you another lesson or two in the near future, Martha Slater. So it's but by forming these companies and realizing what they are kind of starting out and struggling, it's that much more important to make sure that this stimulus money that's going to be coming is directed appropriately, and that it's used as effectively as possible. And I think it's going to be important. As part of our clinic, we also helped over the summer, we helped on the Paycheck Protection Program to make sure that independent contractors, including artists, were able to take advantage of that. And we want to continue that as the next round of funding comes through, to make sure that those funds are available. And then again, following up, I think Martha makes a great point on the healthcare. And I think that there's opportunities there to be able to get nonprofits to participate in state programs, will reduce their costs, allow them to then put more of their funds into their operations and their mission. And I think that's a very positive thing. And again, you get a better rating, you get your 4 stars or 5 stars, so everybody wants to donate to you. But I think that all those sort of economic factors and making sure, again, that they're structured and they're ready to take those funds in, they're eligible to get those grants, I think is going to be crucial, because it really is going to be, I think it's a key part of the growth. It's a key part of getting us back to normal, which I think is where we all want to be. So thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Bob. Appreciate it. Please, Senator Summers.
I guess I didn't put my hand up in the chat box. Well, I think the idea of how we're going to move forward is really how we prioritize things in Hartford. And I think what is a priority for our state? What is a priority for the Appropriations Committee? For me, I would not support a budget if it did not contain money for the arts and culture. I think that is crucial to who we are as Connecticut citizens and where we want our state to move forward. I realize that things are going to be very tough. I have an arrow right in front of my face, so it's kind of weird. Sorry. You know, our revenues are down. There's not as much money to go around. That's very clear. The $9 million that we're going to get is really a drop in the bucket, and there's many, many folks dependent on that money, and it won't last long. We do have to get the virus under control, but not any one of us can do that. That's going to have to take a collaborative effort in public health. We don't know, you know, what it's going to look like over the winter. We're entering into a new phase where we're seeing the cases rise through community spread. So we don't know where we're going to be. Are we going to be back indoors where we can't go out again? So I think it's an opportunity for the arts and culture industry to work with us to try to create a new way in how we're going to deliver the wonderful benefits that we get from going to plays, from being at music venues, by going to an art class in a different way. And I think that we can do that together. I would like to see more collaboration with our local chambers. The chambers can offer you things like office space. We've done it with the tourism districts, office space, access to, you know, administrative help, you know, maybe bundling through healthcare, those types of things, but looking outside of the box in a different way to be able to provide the opportunities, the arts and culture that we all crave and that we all need as individuals. But I do think that it's going to look different than it has in the past. I'm very supportive of the arts and of tourism and of culture. I have been my entire life and on the Appropriations Committee. It is something that we cannot line out in our budget. It is something that we should not be lining out in our schools. But I think it's going to take a very large collaborative effort between the legislature in a bipartisan way and your community, so we can talk further. We can learn exactly what your needs are, what your thoughts are, and how we can deliver these wonderful gifts, I'll call them, of music, of art, of therapy to our citizens in perhaps a different way than we have in the past until we can get through this pandemic. So I'm all ears, I'm open. I hope we can continue this conversation. And I truly appreciate what the arts and the cultures do. Not only are you an economic power for our communities, but you are the lifeblood of our cities. You know, who wants to go to a city where there's no arts and culture? That's why people go. That's why people, you know, they come to Mystic. There are many things that they can do here. And we can't let things like the Mystic Art Museum, things like the Guard Theater be shelved. We have to figure out a way to make that work. And the only way we're going to do it is together through dialogue. So I appreciate you having us and having this opportunity.
Thank you so much, Senator Summers. Are there any other candidates who would like to, please, Senator Austin?
I think I'm the last one.
Yes.
I think everybody else spoke. I like going last. Makes it easier. So a couple things. One, this is a component of the budget. I think that, you know, as all of those people who are on the Appropriations Committee know, they know that the budget is created in a bipartisan fashion from the time the governor drops it off till the time we finish the final document. And everybody's voice gets heard at that point as we move things forward. I do appreciate what Senator Formica did by establishing the Arts and Culture and Tourism caucus, which almost everybody in the whole legislature is part of, because we all recognize the value of this. I do think that what Martha said on the consumer confidence needs to be a key component of what we're doing. I use the two gaming institutions as a bellwether. They could open up 100% today. They have sovereignty and they could do that. So they don't do it because there is not the confidence amongst our constituents and our residents and those that are traveling in to attend larger events that the gaming institutions have, like their arenas or any other events like that. The facts are that until we regain that consumer confidence, many of the components of the arts, culture, and tourism field are not going to be successful, because people are just not going to feel comfortable to go to large crews, even small groups of people. I was delivering a quilt of valor to a local resident today, and he and his wife said, we're just not comfortable going anyplace. We're afraid. And until people are not fearful of that, we're not going to be able to bring back the tourism, arts and culture components of our communities. We're not even going to get our restaurants back up and running without having that consumer confidence. We could say open up, but until we have people that are willing to go into groups of people, we're not going to be able to do anything here. I think that that's going to be a key component of this. And I do believe that the federal government needs to be a component of this. That's why I authored and had many of my colleagues sign on to letters to the federal government outlining the needs as appropriations chairwoman that we have in order for our communities to be successful. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Senator Austin. And thank you all for your, again, very thoughtful responses. We appreciate that very much. With that, I will hand this over to my colleague, Wendy, for the next set of questions.
So we're actually at time right now at 3 o'clock, which was, so we know with 8 panelists, it's a lot to kind of get through. So we are gonna, if I don't see any questions, if there were any attendees that wanted to pop a quick question in there while we kind of begin the closeout, feel free to pop it in there. I'm also gonna put into the chat the link to create the Vote CT with Connecticut Arts Alliance, and also the link for more of the candidate questionnaires responses, which include a question about supporting the arts, supporting racial and social justice, about healing, and a few other things. So there were 5 questions total. So we'll put that in the chat right now, and you can feel free to look and peruse those questions. I know I want to give a personal thank you to Paul and Martha for being on this forum today, considering you have a forum in just another few hours. So, so thank you. But Jess, you want to talk a little bit about Create the Vote and what those next action steps are as we close out?
Absolutely. So what does it mean when you pledge to create the vote? You are pledging to vote by November 3rd, and in turn, you're also helping to increase voter turnout. You are also connecting with your local candidates about the Create the Vote campaign and engaging your community about issues facing the arts, which is obviously very important to all of us. In addition, you're free to read all candidates' responses to the questionnaire, which Wendy briefly mentioned, attend forums, which is what we're doing right now, ask questions, and contact your candidates. If you're so inclined, you can also nudge your candidates to take the questionnaire if they haven't already done so. The last aspect of your pledge is to vote on November 3rd. Please be sure to look up your polling locations on portal.ct.gov or get in those ballots.
Great. So I want to thank all the candidates for being here today and taking time out of your busy campaigning seasons to be here and provide these great answers and insights. It sounds like we're all on the same page about the arts, so I appreciate that. We wish you all the best of luck in the next 2 weeks. For those attending, we will share this recording. It was not live streamed due to technical difficulty, but we will go ahead and make the recording available so it can be on Facebook and on social media, and you'll be able to see that there. Please share it far and wide as you see. So thank you to everybody. Thanks to Eric. Eric, do you want to close us out as final as the host?
Thank you all. I really appreciate hearing so many great things from all of you, and we're looking forward to an election right around the corner. So thanks for thinking about the arts, y'all.
We look forward to working with you all. Thank you so much.
Take care.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Bye-bye.